There was a time when the news was dispensed by a small group of journalists, privileged people in the know, whose words appeared in the national newspapers or listened to in their broadcasts. But the internet is opening up a whole new system of passing on news and exchanging views. Hundreds of thousands of people in Britain are now blogging, posting diaries on the internet for everyone to read. Some well-informed sites are breaking news and exposing rumours that might not otherwise have gone further than the smoking room or the saloon bar. In a moment, I'm going to be discussing all of this with Iaindale, who is what you might call a professional blogger, and the journalist iaindale Brown. But first, News 24's internet expert Spencer Kelly reports how a grassroots phenomenon is being taken up by the political mainstream.
Hello, is there anybody in there?
Meet Ellie Seymour, businesswoman, mother, and self-confessed blogaholic.
If there are hot issues of the day, I'll pick up on it and give my views and invite debate. That's how I view my site, as a debating chamber, really.
Anyone who thinks they've got something to say can blog about it. No surprise, then, that now includes politicians.
Well, it's been a busy morning.
6 months ago, the Tories launched Web Cameron. But all the main parties are using the internet, and there are blogs of every political hue. Labour's Harriet Harman, Deputy Leader Hopeful, is in the vanguard of blogging MPs.
A lot of people said to me, if you're wasting your time doing a political blog, it's completely pointless. You'll just get a load of nasty people slagging you off. What's the point? It is more risk-taking, but I think that people want political discussion to be real and immediate and not too calculated.
Actually, politicians have come quite late to the blog party. Journalists have been blogging for some years. I caught up with our own Nick Robinson. So Nick, you're on the 10 o'clock news every night. Why do you feel the need to blog as well?
Well, it's not a need, but I do like doing it. Why? Because there's an audience out there that now access news almost entirely via the internet. That's one reason. The second reason is it gives you instant feedback. The weird thing about doing my job is you get very large audiences, but the feedback doesn't often go beyond, you're that bloke with the big glasses. This is still me, BBC political
representing the BBC.
This is not me, Nick Robinson, just sounding off. Therefore, I wouldn't write anything that I couldn't broadcast.
And never mind the desktop, the busy political editor on the move blogs from his BlackBerry. Although someone does check his spelling first. It's been said that blogging is the pirate radio of the 21st century. If that's true, then I'm heading for its Radio Caroline. This is the centre of an alternative media empire. Welcome to 18 Doughty Street in central London. This is a television station with a difference. You can only watch it on the internet. A weekly programme, Blogger TV, is hosted by Iaindale. He's open about his conservative political sympathies and about the freedom the internet gives him, bound by the law of libel, but not by the broadcasting regulator or, indeed, the conventions of political journalism.
The Prescott story last year, for example, would not have broken the way that it did had it not been for blogs.
Words have power. And the newspapers are answerable.
Well, so am I as a blogger. If I get something catastrophically wrong and I ruin my reputation, my readers will desert me.
Vote with your feet.
You vote with your feet.
You know, it's amazing how new technology can bring so many of us together.
In America, the internet is already the place for political campaigning, and it will become increasingly important in British politics too. It's important to just not believe the hype and expect to be able to publish a blog and get thousands and thousands of readers. You still have to make a good read, something that's engaging to leaf through on a daily or weekly basis. And in the spirit of blogging, it should be warm, personal, informal. And when absolutely everything that politicians ever say is under the spotlight, you have to wonder if that's ever really going to happen.
Warm and personal. I'm joined by Iaindale and iaindale Brown from the Independent. Ian, before we get cracking properly, the scale of blogging, because an awful lot of our viewers won't have blogged or even read a blog, Is there any way of measuring how many people are reading and indeed posting blogs at the moment?
Well, we're about 3 or 4 years behind the United States in blogging, but the most popular blogs in Britain are getting sort of 20, 25,000 people a day reading them, which is quite a lot when you think that political magazines like the New Statesman only get 30,000 readers. So the phenomenon is growing and more people are starting their own blogs, but some people will only get 50, 100, 200 people a day reading them. That doesn't mean to say they're bad blogs, it's just they haven't sort of quite got going yet.
Yasmin, as a news, you're shaking your head before I've even asked you the question. As a newspaper columnist, you don't like this blogging world.
I don't at all.
Why not?
I think it's the equivalent of going to a pub and listening to complete bores sounding off. I can see the point. There are some bloggers who occasionally hit upon a gem of a story.
A bit like columnists then.
Well, I don't break stories. I opine. This isn't about me. This is about, you know, do you really want to suggest that bores in bars are telling us truths that we, the newspapers or the media...
It's got nothing to do with bores. It's to do with giving people a voice. Everyone now can have a voice on the internet, and people like you don't like it.
And some of them are not worth listening to.
Well, don't listen to them then. You have a choice.
But don't give them this aura as if they're the new soothsayers, as if you lot are the new truth tellers. You are not.
But
you are actually mischievous.
No one's pretending that.
Presumably some are and some aren't. There's good blogging and bad blogging and all sorts of different people blogging. But one thing I have noticed, is that most of the well-known bloggers are conservative or right-wing. There's very few well-known or successful left-wing or liberal bloggers. Now, why is that?
Well, because right-wing people have more interesting things to say, I suppose, Andrew. Well, you would say that. You write for The Independent. No, it is true, and I think part of the reason is that it's easier to blog when the party that you support is in opposition, because you're against something. It's easy to have a rant when you're against something. It's less easy when you're defending the status quo.
It's also the right wing is perpetually whinging about the world as they now find it.
It
is true. But actually, you know, there's a serious point. There is this serious point here. One of the things that worries me is even journalists are now beginning to believe that bloggers are reaching truths that the rest of us can't. And I had a terrible scandal thrown out by a blogger about me that I was being questioned for the cash for peerages. And I had to turn to him to put it on his blog because nobody would believe me when I said it wasn't true.
You see, and I
used him and abused him, but it is still really something I cannot approve.
When we're talking about what bloggers do, though, Ian, most of the time they are, as it were, sounding off. They are using a digital soapbox. Yeah. Relatively rarely are they breaking fresh stories. I mean, to a certain extent, people say it's parasitic on traditional journalism. There's truth in that, isn't there?
I did not go into blogging to break stories. If I wanted to be a journalist, I would be a journalist. I went into blogging because I had things to say about political issues of the day, and I wanted to have a platform to say them, and I wanted to have a conversation with people. What Yasmin doesn't like is that there is as well as being on broadcast mode here, which columnists always are, you're also on receive. You have a conversation with your readers. Columnists like Yasmin and Polly Toynbee hate it because they're forced then to interact with their readers.
I get 800 emails a week and I read them and I often respond to them. We have conversations. What I do not want is threats, intimidation, which bloggers are often involved in, and I do not want verbal vomit thrown over me, which is what happens.
It can happen, I agree with that.
One other issue, newspapers are paid for, adverts and so on, and many of them are in secular decline. Blogging is coming up. Who's paying for it all? Who's funding?
Well, the great thing about blogging is that it's free. You can sign up to Blog or WordPress or TypePad. They provide you with a free platform.
You need to buy your clothes. You need to buy your food.
I don't earn a living from it. I get some advertising revenue now, but I mean I certainly couldn't live on that. I never went into it to be a professional blogger. It just so happens that my blog has become one of the best known. Now that was never done by design.
It's all big in the States now. Is this going to both of you going to be big at the next general election? Are we going to be looking at blogs?
Well, 35 million worldwide.
60 actually.
And well, I just want it to grow and grow and grow until it is so big that it kills itself because nobody will have time to read them. That's all I want.
All right, well, we will see. We will carry on reading them and see if they disappear because there's too many of them. But thank you both very much indeed. Now, we mentioned the great Ian Richardson earlier. His